Beginning a new journey can be stressful. That's why it's important to prepare the best you can. You never know what types of obstacles you may face as you venture out along these new paths. No matter what the journey, it's important to be proactive. Because if you can't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of your loved one. Order your copy today at www.jessicalazellcannon.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Proactive Caregiving Podcast. As a CPA with over 20 years as an industry accountant, Jessica stepped away from the corporate world to become a full-time caregiver for her mother. Having learned invaluable lessons along the way, she is now here to share those with you and to invite you to join her on this caregiver's journey. Here is your host, Jessica Cannon.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I am the Proactive Caregiver, and I specialize in educating others on how to be proactive by empowering you, the caregiver. Because if you cannot take care of yourself, then you can't take care of your loved one. And part of taking care of ourselves, today's topic, we're going to talk about dealing with our caregiver hormones, more so balancing them and possibly even seeking hormone therapy. So, all right, ladies, if you are experiencing what I now call power surges, others know them as hot flashes, then listen up closely. Men, pay close attention as well, because if your partner isn't experiencing this yet, it's a matter of time before they do, and probably a matter of time before you might feel like you're going to be in the doghouse for looking at them cross when they're having this power surge. Besides, men also have their own experience with hormones dropping, those levels not being able to stay balanced, which may affect you in different ways. So it's my approach to be proactive rather than reactive. But before we go into that topic, I do want to give you a little bit of a recap, because this being able to balance the hormone for most becomes from that area of sleep. We did an episode quite some time ago about caregivers' sleep and restorative sleep, because those cycles are what help our body replenish those hormones. And so in addition to repairing and detoxifying, the body is also needing that restorative sleep to replenish these hormones. Now, some of these hormones you may be familiar with are, or maybe not so much by name, but cortisol, ghrelin, and leptin. Those also need that restorative sleep to be replenished. The cortisol, part of what kicks in that fight or flight mode, helps us to react and survive. The ghrelin hormone is what gives us that appetite, the ability to have this appetite, and affects our body weight, basically. And so that's where, after that kicks in within a certain amount of time, then the leptin kicks in, and that comes from our fat cells. Then that helps signal the body to start decreasing the appetite. So that's why you want to chew slow when you first start eating for those first 10 minutes, because your body already knows to start releasing these hormones. So your sleep cycles affect these hormones. But in addition to those hormones, when we start experiencing menopause or menopause, because that is a thing, we are having issues with levels dropping and becoming unbalanced between progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen, more hormones. May not seem like a big issue as a caregiver or wondering how does this play into it, but when it comes down to it and you're trying to fulfill your caregiver routine, every ounce of energy is so incredibly important. So being aware of these areas so that you can proactively plan in advance, knowing when the fatigue sets in, when the mood swings set in, when that Charlie Brown cloud might be following you a little bit more often than usual, that's when you know you're not alone and it's time to do some proactive work with that. So today's guest, I have asked Tamika Cerretti to come in to bring light to this topic because she does have a hilarious comedy routine that she's done that brings that laughter and levity to this uncomfortable topic. Tamika is an American actress, singer, writer, producer, director, and the all-around funny girl that lights up any room she's in. Before she became an actor, when she was in the 6th grade, she saw her mother portray Bethina in Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun. Tamika fell in love, head over heels with the stage. And even though Tamika was brought up singing and dancing and being a pageant queen, she joined the U.S. Navy after graduation. She served her country as a seaman apprentice and traveled the world in the Western Pacific Fleet aboard the USS Samuel Gompers. Upon receiving her honorable discharge from the U.S. Navy, she enrolled in Indiana University as a computer science major. Like apples and oranges here, going the opposite direction. But while she was there one day, Tamika strolled through the theater as rehearsals were underway for Spoon River Anthology, and her love for the theater was reignited once again. So thank you for coming on with me today and sharing this very serious topic, but on a lighthearted way.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Definitely. So I had the privilege to meet you originally on the set of the Dark Red movie. And I was so amazed at the way you brought the lead character to light. You had an incredible amount of talent, but you had this high level of energy. This energy that I thought, oh my gosh, I need that in a bottle so I can take it myself. So what kind of health regimens do you kind of seek to keep that going from project to project?
Well, it's definitely healthy eating. You know, I try to stay on top of the things that I eat, and I try to be mindful of the things that my body doesn't like, which is things like red meat, which I love, a good steak.
Right.
But, you know, you got to pay attention to the digestion and the stomach and stuff. So that I do hot yoga, which I love. If I had to take my druthers of anything like lifting weights, working out, running,
Right.
It would be hot yoga. And so I try to keep up with that, but my metabolism moves so fast that I don't have to worry about like the weight gain. I wish I could gain like 10 pounds. We've
Like
had this
you.
conversation.
Yes, I'm
Like,
glad to give you some of mine.
Yeah, believe me, if like I took all the weight from people who are offering it, then I'd be in trouble. Everybody's like, here's your 10 pounds. So, you know, I just try to do that, and I try to stay on top of my sleep. And, you know, one of the biggest things was getting my hormones checked.
Right. So when did you start to begin to feel that shift and realize that your hormones could possibly be shifting?
Well, mine happened because I had a surgery. I had to have a full well, it wasn't supposed to be a full hysterectomy. It was just supposed to be a partial. I was going to keep my ovaries and my fallopian tubes so that I could still, you know, have those hormones producing.
Right.
But once she got in there, she was like, oh my God, you were really sick. She was like, so they made the decision while I was under to just take everything.
Wow.
And that kicked it off like right there.
So after all of that was said and done, did you get some sort of heads up of, hey, this is what you can expect hormonally going forward?
Not really. Like, I hate to say this about my doctor but I think because she was in a point of retiring, and she just kind of, I think I was like her last surgery.
Oh, wow.
And then she retired, and they basically gave me an estrogen patch and was like, sent me on my way, and that wasn't sufficient. It wasn't enough.
No, because you obviously need more than just estrogen there.
Yeah, you need the full spectrum of them, the testosterone, the progesterone, and the estrogen.
So then what kind of symptoms actually started happening for you that kind of clued you into that there's a change, there's a need for more?
Girl, you call them power surges, I call them straight up hot flashes. Hot flashes, the night sweats, the insomnia, the brain fog, you know, it was all of that.
Did you ever feel this and kind of compare it with all that you have going with projects, going, travel, family? Did you ever feel like, oh, it's just stress. I just need extra rest and I'll be fine?
No, I think when you have your uterus and all of the other parts taken out, you know what it is.
Right.
It's not like people who go into menopause is just a slow downward spiral, and they don't know what it is. Maybe it is stress. Maybe it's, not getting enough sleep, or maybe it's, those things. But when it hits you like a brick, you run into a brick wall and you know what it is.
So you had what a lot of others refer to as the surgical menopause.
Yes.
There's the natural, which I feel like I'm going through the natural menopause now. And I did that at first. Oh, it's just stress. Oh, it's just, because I knew years ago that I would have interruptions in a cycle where it was like, okay, but then it was like I was only a day late versus being, hello, where'd it go? What's happening here? And then everything else coming with it. So you had that surgical difference.
Yes.
Versus the natural.
I did. And like I said, it's like hitting a brick wall. But then if nobody's talking to you, it took me several years after the surgery to even figure out, like, I'm using the estrogen patches, I'm using the estrogen gel, and I'm like hoping it's going to help. And it's not. So then I started looking up natural things, ashwagandha, the maca root, and but those things, like, I needed like something. A lot. Yeah, I needed a lot. And so it might have been a good 6 or 7 years that I went without this. And then it was a decline in, my sexual appetite, my desire, all of those things too that come with menopause. And it got to the point where my husband was like at his wit's end, and he's like, you have to we got to figure this out. Yeah. So I, started doing more research, and I came upon the Hormone Wellness Center.
Nice.
So, and this doctor, I'm not for sure how many other people are doing bioidentical hormones, but he's really good at what he does. And I'm going on my 2nd year, and I feel great.
That says a lot.
Yes.
What a difference because that is yet another thing. So what I usually do is I try and rationalize it, reason it out. Oh, it's probably just this, or that. Oh, and so that means all I have to do are these 1, 2, 3 little things, but not realizing it's a little bit more than just those little things. It's a little bit more than that, yes. So now that you have been able to figure out what it is and how you're going through, because it's not just you, right? With your husband, it's not just what you're experiencing. He's experiencing a decline, a change as well.
Almost a loss of intimacy, a loss of, I'm just going to leave it at that, a loss of intimacy, because, sometimes that's his love language. Right. He loves to kiss me. He loves to hug me. He loves to touch me. And, then that leads to,
of course,
the other stuff. So if it's like, because of what I was going through, I was just like, look, stop kissing me, stop touching me, because no. And he's like,
it's not going to lead there.
He's like, what did I do? And I'm like, it's not you. Like, and they don't understand that.
No, they don't. And it's that cliche, it's not you, it's me. Well, in this case, it really is me.
It really is. But they don't understand. I think that we as humans need to understand, and that's the difference between us and animals, is that we can understand what is really going on with our body, and we can verbalize it, and we can go somewhere and have it fixed. Right. Animals can't do that. So, but men, I don't think they get it when you're really, really going through this. Like, he was very supportive when I had the surgery, and thinking that, okay, this is going to fix it. But then it sent us down deeper into a hole. And I was like, now we have to fix it some more. And you really have to be in tune and know what you're lacking and go and get it.
And that's what I find so interesting, is that when men start to reach this stage, there's things like Viagra for them. So there is something to help them. They can pop their little blue pill and everything's fine. But our system, I guess, is a little bit more complicated, and we can't just pop that pill or eat moringa leaves or something that fixes it like that without having someone actually looking, okay, you need this, and you need this much of each one, and being able to find that new routine that helps you bounce back.
And because it is so intricate, I go every 8 weeks, have my blood drawn, they look at my levels, and they tell me when I have to go back and get my insert in, well, you need this much testosterone, and it, varies. Like when you're taking these hormones, like I have to physically take the progesterone by mouth. And the last time I went, I hadn't been taking it. And he was like, well, I see your progesterone's a little low. Have you been taking it? And I'm like, no, I haven't. So, they can really tell with your numbers and stuff,
Which is perfect, because that's where I believe where caregivers might have this area where they're already exhausted. They're already tired. They're already dealing with frustrating moments. And the mood swings that are there, yes, could be involved with what they're doing. But if you're already starting from this area where your hormone levels are already out of balance, then it doesn't take long to go from that 0 to 60 and you're, upset and angry or having issues throughout the day.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I think most men and women, we tend to say, oh, it's just aging, and we just deal with it.
I think men more so than women, because I've seen a couple of men in the Hormone Wellness Center, but I don't know a lot who would be like, oh, sign me up. I'm going to go get some estrogen, some progesterone, and some, maybe they might take more testosterone. Right. That's what we drive the man thing. But I don't think they do it like we do, and they're not as invested.
No.
They're more so, let me go get the blue little pill and then make my hormones,
Right. If their idea might be a little bit more targeted because they have a very specific result they're trying to reach. But it also sometimes when it comes to that, it's maybe a little bit more embarrassing. Because I know growing up, it's always those things that you know of and you know it's coming at some point. But, I had maybe a year ago that my OBG told me, oh, you're too young. You have a long time ago. So I was thinking I had at least another maybe 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And this last couple of months, I thought, oh, wait a minute. This is different.
Yeah, they don't tell you about the pre-menopause.
Exactly. So that's when I realized, okay, so something's happening. I'm very in tune with my body now. And so when this stuff started changing, mood swings, the night sweats, oh my gosh. Yeah. And that was, okay, we need to lower the thermostat. We need to sleep with the ceiling fan on. I've kept finding all kinds of reasons to say, no, please, no, this is not happening, when it happens.
Yeah, it happens. And when it happens, those things, girl, it's like, I don't think you saw all of my comedy special, but I liken it to my son when he was maybe 10 or 11. He watched a documentary on spontaneous combustion. And so I have a joke about that because I'm like, yeah, it's called a hot flash.
Yes.
And so when I took him to the doctor for a checkup, and he was asking the doctor about spontaneous combustion, and the doctor looked at me like, what are you teaching this kid? And I was like, it was a documentary. But I'm like, all of those were probably women who had a hot flash, and all you see left are the hands and the feet.
That's how it feels.
That's how it feels.
Yes, exactly. Well, and that's why I didn't understand it. Where is this? What did I do? Am I wearing the layers? And no sooner that you get the layers off and change covers or whatever, you're like, ooh, it's cold.
Yeah.
But I found out that that's the body's natural way of cooling you off. And I thought, well, how is that? Really? It's going to burn you up to cool you off? And it really is this hot flash as it comes and goes.
The hot flash is bad, but I don't think it was as bad as the night sweats, because you get that hot flash and then it goes away.
Right.
The night sweats, you're in the bed and you're just
drenched.
I would wake up and my whole side of the bed is wet. Yeah. So then I got to wake him up because I got to change the sheets and change my pajamas and then, try to go back to sleep. And that's a thing about what the progesterone helps, because it regulates your sleep cycle.
Yes.
So when you're taking that, the estrogen is doing its job, the testosterone is doing its job, but the progesterone is making sure you sleep through the night.
Right.
So if you're not having to get up with that night sweat or the power surge, as you call them, then you can sleep the whole night, because what makes you tired is you get hot, then you're taking the covers off. Then you're like, oh my God, I'm freezing. It wakes you up. Then you cover up. And then it's this constant
then
on
you
and
wake
off.
up exhausted.
And then you're exhausted in the morning.
Exhausted, low energy, and the irritability, you wake up with irritability because it's just there.
Yeah.
So that is the part that I found really interesting with the progesterones, because whenever I used to think about that, that was for pregnant women. That was, you know, the helping them with their fertility. I didn't realize that progesterone, because of what it does, it helps us to regulate the fluid in our body. Well, I thought, well, no wonder those hot flashes and then the night sweats came in, because waking up in the middle of the night and going, oh my gosh, I am just drenched. Where did this come from? It's like someone just threw a glass of water.
Yeah, a bucket.
Yes, right. A bucket, exactly. So since you have been able to do this for the last 2 years, you feel the definite difference in balanced hormones. And so,
and my energy, it allows me to be able to show up on set and be, you know, positive, to be high energy and to get the job done, you know.
Which is what I was just so incredibly impressed with. I thought, oh my gosh, because I know you had a very busy schedule, that even when we had an 8 to 10, possibly a 12-hour day on the set, you were like, at the end of the day, you were still with the energy going, as if you just got there and we were just starting. I thought, how in the world is she doing this?
Well, there were some days I had to go and take a little nap, because, you know, I think it was like we shot long into the night or whatever.
Yeah.
So if I get a little nap, I'm good. But
still,
those hormones, they help you, girl. I'm telling you.
On top of that, you were able to spend some time with your granddaughter, who is 2.
She's 2 now.
So, okay, that takes a lot of energy in itself, keeping up after a little one.
Oh, yeah.
So that speaks a lot to how this works and just being able to maintain it and balance it. But the very beginning, you said you were very in tune with your body.
Yes.
And that's what the caregivers need. We get distracted with what we're doing and why we're doing it, how we're doing it, that we lose that being in tune with our bodies. So as soon as you feel these differences, and it doesn't have to always be a hot flash, we could be, because for me, I started noticing this moody blues started, and it lingered for a little bit, and I thought, oh, this is not like me. And then it lingered a little bit longer, and then it actually got to be a little bit more than a moody blue, and I thought, something's not right. No, I couldn't shake it, and I thought, am I experiencing situational depression? Is what it, and I started going through all this, but when I finally took the time to sit back and go, okay, I'm experiencing hot flashes, I'm experiencing these moody blues, this irritability, definitely the sex drive. Just, it was like one day, time before was just, everything was great, wonderful, had that desire, burning desire and everything, and then all of a sudden one day it was like gone. Yeah. Which is why I laughed when you said in your comedy routine, when you said they shouldn't call it menopause, they should call it menostop. And I thought, that's so, because it literally was just like one day, just like you said, for me, everything just stopped. Yeah. And it wasn't until reaching that point that I had to look back, okay, how long have I been experiencing these hot flashes? How long have I had these night sweats? How long have I had this moody blues? And it all started coming together, and I was like, okay, well, instead of experiencing the big O and enjoying it, I'm experiencing the little O for old. And that made me feel so sad, because I'm not in that mindset. I don't want to feel old, and I don't like talking about that old, like I'm becoming old. It's not just a number, it's a mindset.
Yeah, it is, but you know, aging, we can't help it, because our bodies are eventually, you know, back to dust. Right. And so we've got to, even with the mentality, because if I, you know, people, when they see me and like the energy levels that I have or whatever, they cannot believe I'm as old as I am. But it's mind over matter. Exactly. Up until a point, because your body is still going to age. Those hormones are still going to decrease. Right. And it's up to us to just, you know, put them back in there. But
Balance.
you made one point of, especially being a caregiver. You know, my mother-in-law had dementia and Alzheimer's, and I wasn't her main caretaker, but whenever she would come and stay with us, you know, Julio and I would have to do that. And paying attention to your body, so that it's almost like when you're on a plane and the plane is going down, they tell you to put your mask on, oxygen on, before you help the elderly or children. You have to take care of yourself and know what's going on with your body. And something that I see that, you know, and I'm not pointing any fingers, but a lot of caretakers, they let themselves go, and then they're eating fast food there because it's a quick fix.
Right.
Because they don't have time to worry about themselves. They're worried about, you know, whoever they're taking care of.
Exactly.
But they have to stay in tune with their bodies and what it needs and what it doesn't need.
And that's the trick of all of this, is there's all these preparation steps that we can take, but at some point, even for me, the meal prepping and all this other preparation that I did to keep myself going, at some point I ran out of time to keep up with it. And so I started going to where I was buying the quick and easy, and I had that, it was like I was running on fumes, and I just kept getting slower and slower and slower. And so that's where I want the caregivers to understand that balancing your hormones may not seem something significant enough to actually look into this. But when you actually go through it, I'm sure you feel like day and night difference.
Oh, yes.
From 2 years ago to now. So have you had to change any of your health regimens as you're going forward? Or does it make you think of things differently?
Not really. You know, I am making a little bit of a change right now, and that's only because I'm doing this thing that I call leveling up to get to the next level. And so, but when I first got this, they do inserts, the estrogen and the testosterone, and then they give you the progesterone. You have to take that by mouth at nighttime. Other than that, there was no changes. But right now I'm just, you know, I'm not drinking because I want to see what more it can give me. You know?
Right.
So, and then like last night was my first, it was a vegan meal because there was no meat at all. It was like grilled avocado, lettuce wraps or something. And there was no,
good.
It was very good. It was very good.
See, and that's the clean eating that I may not be vegan. I eat more vegetarian, but every now and again I'll have some fish.
Yeah.
And once a month I'll have some beef. And that's something that I feel the difference when I eat those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either too much or too little. It's just balancing it out. But, you know, taking away the alcohol, reducing the amount of caffeine, the fatty meats, like you said, those are the things that we don't realize that affect those hormone balances.
Exactly.
And that's something I didn't realize either, is because we're getting some of those hormones from the meat that we eat. But it's not enough to replace what we've lost.
Yeah.
So one of the things I noticed with my mom is when she had her hysterectomy years ago, she did get to keep one of her ovaries. So it did give her a little bit of estrogen. But it wasn't until I started experiencing this, because she had her hysterectomy early on in life, way before I ever had, I think before I had my second child. So I didn't get that mindset of thinking, of asking, did you ever start experiencing menopause before you had the hysterectomy? All those questions that I felt like that knowledge, that passed, the mother-daughter knowledge to pass down. Hey, heads up, this is going to happen this happened to me at this age, so you might experience it also. I didn't get that chance to ask that information.
Yeah.
But looking into this information, I realized that the estrogen also affects the brain. So that's something that when we think we can deal with it, it's just part of old age and it's just part of this process. Yes, it is, but balancing it and having the estrogen, I mean, it affects our muscles, it affects our breast, skin, hair, all of that stuff. And it doesn't seem fair when, you know, the guy starts to thin and lose hair, but the woman starts to grow hair in places that it's like, doggone it, I'm plucking more because I don't want whiskers. And
that is so me, because now I think that right now my testosterone might be too high because I'm getting, you know, breakouts on my face. I'm getting the facial hair and all of that good stuff. And I'm like, Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
I was in Indiana and I got back to Texas. And the problem is that I have to wear like little reader glasses. And if I don't put them on, I can't see my mustache. So I got back from Indiana and I put my glasses on and I was like, what? I was like, nobody in Indiana saw this mustache. They didn't tell me about it. So I started plucking. I was like, I got to get rid of this thing. So yeah, but I might have to have my testosterone lowered.
It's interesting you say that because that's yet another indicator for me thinking back. I remember saying to families and friends, I used to have some acne breakouts and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in my early 40s and I feel like I'm still a 16-year-old. Where is this coming? My testosterone was spiking, but other things had to have been dropping. Yeah. So I had a little bit of, and that's also, I guess that's why they say women in their 40s have the higher sex drive. It's not just because they have less stress in life, because stress is stress. You know, it's just a different kind of stress. But it seemed like everything was surging up. Yes. And then all of a sudden it was gone. Doggone it. Gotta put that like gold in a bottle.
Yes.
Talk about the fountain of youth.
Yeah.
As you go forward and as you continue with your testosterone and the progesterone and estrogen, getting all of those shots, did they give any kind of forewarning of be aware of this or be careful of that, don't do this? Or is it just a matter of we know you, we balanced your levels, and you should be good going forward?
No, I think because it's a constant thing. It's every 8 weeks I go and get my blood drawn. So, you know, if something's going like they didn't want it to go, you know, they will see it.
Right away.
And yeah, just like I said with the progesterone, I wasn't taking it. He could see that. But then I'll tell you a story that I didn't tell them, but, you know, I had... Another thing I had was I had breast implants and I got breast implant illness. And so I got them taken out. So now I'm just like, you know, an A cup and they're little. But when I first got the hormones, the estrogen kicked in and my boobs they got kind of big. And I was like, ooh, I think I like this estrogen. But then as quick as that happened, I guess my body, you know, leveled out with the estrogen and they left. Oh. And I was like, can you give me some more of that estrogen? And they were like, no, you're at a good...
the top shelf estrogen?
Yeah. Like, pump some more in that. So they were like, no, you're leveled out. You're in a good place. And I was like...
Well, that's good to know because I have my appointment set for next week. So I can go get my hormones balanced. Because if there is something I can do on that proactive level to maintain the energy... because I definitely felt the dip in energy to the point where I was ready to say, okay, I need to stop everything I'm doing. I'm pulling out, I'm unplugging. I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I realized, what in the world is going on with me? Where is my mind going that I'm ready to unplug?
Yeah.
I thought,
well, because it just becomes, and that's another thing, our hormones regulate our hormones. That's why they say when you go into menopause, women go crazy. Because
unfortunately,
they're all over the place. And so if you don't know what it is, you don't know what it is. And you are going crazy. And then you're like, you know what? I'm just not going to do this. I need rest. Because I've been there, you know, and now my schedule with living part-time in Atlanta, living part-time here, on a plane all the time.
Right.
I probably, if my hormones were not balanced, I would not be able to do this and go at the breakneck speeds I'm going at.
Exactly. You know? That's my point, that I realized your energy level, even though you have the fast metabolism, you were able to maintain to keep up with all of this. Meanwhile, when I actually started to ramp up and started to do more things, I realized my energy is fizzling at a certain part of the day, and I had a side of what I was eating, so I really had to pay attention to what am I putting in for that fuel, and then what else is going on. I got a good night's sleep, I got the good fuel, okay, now what else? Had to keep going through that process of elimination. So
well, that's the thing also, like, you know, and this is not about that, but when I had the breast implants and I was getting ill and I couldn't figure out what was going on, I sat down and I wrote all of my symptoms. And it was the same thing with this menopause. When after I was thrust into it, I sat down and I was like, what is happening? Okay, I'm having the hot flashes. I'm having the night sweats. I'm up all night long, because the insomnia. What is happening?
Yes.
So,
yes.
that's another part of being proactive and having foresight to say, these are the things that are happening with my body, with my mind, whatever. What do I need to do to fix it?
Right.
And
that's all of this. I mean, ironically, the hormones regulate the hormones, but the getting good sleep keeps that cycle of the regulation going. And when one breaks down, the other breaks down, and then we just fall apart.
Yeah, and the hormones are just to put on top of that, because I feel like if you take your vitamins every day, you feel like your vitamins should be giving you energy,
right?
And most of the time they do, but if your hormones are low, then they can't regulate themselves. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right.
So going and get the hormone help is just the topper on there.
See, I'm glad you said that, because I know I've had times where I get my vitamins. I say, oh, okay, this is great. It's working, because I feel that boost of energy. So then I tell my husband, oh, this really works. You should take them too. And then he'll take them and say, I didn't really feel anything from it. I don't think I should take it. And I thought, oh, okay, how is this possible? Is this just a metabolism difference, the body weight difference? But then I thought, there's, just like you said, there's got to be something else that I feel better taking them. He doesn't feel better taking them, but he feels worse when he's not taking them sometimes. Or I feel, definitely I can feel it now when I don't take them. But I'm looking forward to having my hormones balanced finally, because the hot flashes, it's annoying. It's just, especially when you're trying to layer clothes. The seasons are changing right now, and no matter how light of layers I put on, it still is like this inferno that just comes up. Whoosh.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I'm so cold. Put on some more layers. This back and forth. I'm done. I'm so done.
One thing too, I think that helps me with that is the hot yoga, because it's so hot in the room and you're sweating out, you're detoxing. So when it's like 100 degrees outside, my body can regulate itself, because there was a point I was going every morning, but now today was the first time I went back since the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sold on that, because you are the second person that told me that recently, that the hot yoga was helping them in that way.
With the hot flashes, yeah.
Yes, because I'm all about, I'm definitely going to look into having my hormones balanced and get that regimen started.
You'll have to let me know what they say, girl.
I'm ready, because it needs to be done. But at the same time, once I get that going, what else can I do in addition to that? Because I'm sure my energy will come back, or at least I'm hoping my energy comes back, and everything else kind of balances out with the moods and the irritability.
It will.
Yeah. And so that's where I wanted to bring this topic up and have Tamika share, because it is not just the women that are experiencing this. Our spouses are experiencing their own level of hormonal differences, but even if they're good, we have our issues that we have to balance, and it affects them in ways that could create those issues between married couples that creates that clash a little bit too much. And especially if you're the caregiver, I know that there are caregivers out there who have had divorces because they're trying to care for their loved one, and at the same time this change is taking place between them and their spouse. And there's just so much going on that we can alleviate some of the stress if we look at some of these areas to figure out, like you said, writing things down, because that's perfect. Yeah. Write it down to get an idea of what is actually happening.
Yeah, and show that to your spouse. I believe communication is a really big part. And women, it used to be we suffered menopause in silence, but now that's why I was like, when I started doing the comedy, I'm like, not a lot of women are talking about this.
Exactly.
Especially not comedians, And if they do, they say, maybe one or two things. But I've kind of built mine around that, because I want people to know that it's okay.
Right.
It's going to happen. If you're a female, it's going to happen to you.
Exactly.
And men need to on the other side of it, be supportive, but we need to tell them what's going on with us.
Right.
You know.
Right. And that's where I had to gently tell my husband, I don't want it to sound cliche. I'm not trying to make excuses. It's not you. It really is me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why it's me.
Yeah. And
and
see,
so
but and this is why it's
exactly.
me.
This is why it's me. And this is why I think I'm being this way. And this is why I reacted this way. And this is why I'm feeling this way. And so it made more sense to him. And he had, not that he's not supportive, but it made more sense to him. And so he was even more supportive than normal.
Yeah. And I bet you he's looking forward to you going to the hormone. My husband was like, go, do it. And then he's like, how much is it?
I paid. Get it done. He's got you set for life now.
Yes. I bet you if I said tomorrow, babe, I'm not going back to that hormones wellness center, he'd be like, no, you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's helped a lot.
And I anticipate that. I know it's going to, because here's the thing. The progesterone, this is something that men and women both experience, the drop. And we can actually get foods that help this in the meantime, because even when I start my hormone therapy, I'm also going to make sure. And when I looked at this list, I was like, thank you. It's not something new, and it's not something that I would go, ooh, gross. I've got to start eating what? But thankfully, this is stuff like for the progesterone naturally: beans, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, nuts, pumpkin, spinach, and whole grains. Okay, yes. I could do that, all right? That.
Yes.
Exactly. So I thought, well, no wonder I felt better before, years ago, when this was already part of my diet.
Yeah.
And as I started to get busy in this last month or so with my mom, things shifting and changing, some of this stuff dropped. Because I was on the go, and I wasn't, like I said, I ran out of some of that time to do the meal prepping, and now I feel the difference. Boy, do I feel it.
Yeah.
But with estrogen, it's similar to this, where you can also find things naturally, and it's that phytoestrogen-rich foods, which comes from the plant-based stuff. Again, stuff that I already eat: kale, spinach, chard, those healthy greens. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I've got to eat another salad. Or I've got to eat kale. Yuck. This is really good stuff.
Yeah. Well, some of us, people like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But I bet you didn't know this, and this happens to me. Caffeine, coffee. Caffeine can turn into, and I forget what they call it, but a type of estrogen in your body. So if you're drinking a lot of coffee, it can spike your estrogen levels.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
Which makes sense when they talk about reducing the amount of alcohol, caffeine, and the fatty meats that we have, because it's already there. That's really interesting. Which I switched over instead of, it's been a couple of years, but I slowly started weaning myself off of caffeine and trying to replace it, because I still wanted that kind of wake up factor in the mornings, but I didn't want the caffeine. So I transitioned to green teas. But then this last summer, while we were on set, I started drinking mud water.
Yeah.
I
remember you told me about that, and I haven't tried it yet.
It's been, and since then, I love it because the caffeine that's in it is much less, because it comes from black tea as opposed to the coffee bean. And then it also has the turmeric, and turmeric was another thing that I read that would help with the flashing and the memory, that fogginess, because that was yet another thing that I was experiencing, was this brain fog all of a sudden. And knowing what mom is going through, living with mixed dementia, I was like, oh no, please tell me this is not, is this happening to me? Okay, I just need a good night's sleep, and then I'll be able to remember. And
it's the menopause, girl.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm traveling and I can't get in my 8 weeks. So, the pellets are probably draining down, and I get that feeling of like, I'll go into a room and I'll be like, what did I just come in here to get? And I have to step back out where I was last, and I'm like, oh, tissue.
Then go back.
Yeah, and then go back. So, those moments, they do still happen, but it's when my hormones are waning down. So I'm like, I need to get back to Austin so I can get my pellets back in.
So at the end of your 8 weeks, there's that feeling of wow. Well, I guess it's the check engine light, so to speak.
Yep.
It's interesting. Well, I'm looking forward to experiencing that excited, desirable, going back to the big O instead of just feeling the little O.
Yes, girl.
Yes. Oh my goodness. This has been a great time to be able to speak with you, but thank you for sharing this, because I know it may be somewhat personal, but at the same time, if we don't talk about it, then others don't know and learn in such a way, whether you do it is in the hysterical way that you did on stage or in this arena of just pretty much letting people know that balancing our hormones will actually make life a better quality, regardless of what age you're experiencing these changes at.
And I'm willing to shout it from the rooftop. So it is personal, but if it's gonna help other people, I'll do it.
Yes, exactly. And this is going to help other people because we have our millennial caregivers who are taking care of their parents probably sooner than they ever thought and expected to, and have no idea this is where they're headed. In addition to that lack of energy and everything they're doing, it doesn't change. It actually changes in a different way. I don't want to say it gets worse because that sounds negative, but being aware of those changes, like if I knew not just menopause, it's what women go through in their 50s, roundabout. I'm in my mid 40s and I'm starting it. So everybody's different. And knowing it going in, it's just like, Maya Angelou would say, knowledge is power,
Yeah, because if I had known when I had my full hysterectomy that it would, kick me into that, I wouldn't have waited. Like, I would have been, once again, proactive and said, okay, here's the deal. Now I'm uterus-less, no fallopian tubes, no, what do I need to do?
Right.
And I wish that somebody would have led me to the water, to get that knowledge. So that's my purpose, is leading people so that they can be proactive, so that they can, if they're already in it, they can say, whoa, maybe that'll help me.
Right.
Or if they're inching their way there, they can say, ooh, let me check this out before I get to that point.
Exactly. And that's the point. Be proactive. Get this checked out before you get to that point. If you suspect that your spouse is going through this, men, I know this is a hard time to approach your wives and say, hey, honey, you might want to look into this. It's, again, that conversation that can be had, and it will save you and so much more medical issues later from trying to figure out what this is, and trying to put other things in your body that are not even related to it, won't even help it, because that's another thing that we do. Those moody blues, when they come in, they're real, and trying to drink more alcohol or take more sleeping pills, or that's not going to help, because the problem is still going to be there. That's just treating a symptom, not the source at this point. Straight from Tamika Cerretti. She knows. So thank you for joining in with us today. I hope you found this valuable. You can actually go to the blog on jessicalazellcannon.com. I put some more information on these hormones for you to check out. I hope this gave you more food for thought. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, be proactive. Take care.
Thank you for joining us today. We really hope you've enjoyed this episode. To learn more about proactive caregiving and to hear other episodes of this podcast, please visit www.jessicalazellcannon.com. This podcast is produced by Cannon Light Media, LLC, www.cannonlightmedia.com. Music provided by Chris Paradise.